Welcome to LBM Flash Moments with Phil Fernaro.
All right, hello everyone. This is Phil Fernando. This is Flash Moments. We're just getting back from out of the country, and my mind is starting to trigger again. Very interesting. We're going to talk today a little bit about how the mind actually operates, and it's weird. Maybe it's based on geography. Maybe it's based on energy. When you go to Europe, which I just did, it's pretty important to know that I am not at the same level of energy. It's different. It's nice. It's relaxing and so forth. But I've been to Italy so many times. We have relatives out there, and I love it. But then when I crave the energy back in the United States, and I may have talked about this in the other one, but we're going to talk about it in a little different perspective. It's just how my mind changed. As you know, over the past several years, we've been working at light bulb moments, trying to figure out, becoming more self-aware, why things are happening. Before in an episode, a couple episodes ago, we talked about how my mind started seeing in patterns a little bit, and speaking Italian would became far easier because I thought about this in a different light. And I could see the things in Italian. When I see a street, I didn't see a street. I saw a strada, and so forth. It was kind of these like weird dynamic. However, I did notice that every time I sat down, and I was in an environment of relaxation, dealing with family, enjoying myself, my daughter's wedding. However, every time I sat down to talk about or think about what to write about for flash moments, just wasn't coming into my brain. And it was weird. I don't know why. And I'm trying to figure it out. Maybe hopefully today I'll have the light bulb moment to figure it out while we're talking, because guess what? I'm trying to solve for this problem, or try to solve for why during this podcast, because I think it'll be a little bit easier for to me to think about it when I talk in light bulb moments. So anyway, I didn't have any heavy legal work. I do know that my mind had to shut down. So before I left, I had a whole bunch of things going on at Fernaro Law. I ended up having to do way, way more legal work than any human should do. So the last 3 weeks, along with my tooth extraction, was very, very intense. So perhaps my mind, maybe the first possible light bulb moment here is my mind just said, dummy, relax a little bit. Don't try to do what you do. And it's hard to not do what you do when you like what you do. So the idea is maybe the body does that. Maybe it says, hey, it's time for us to recuperate. Give me a break. You're stressing me out. So that's possible. I don't know. I'm no doctor, but that's something I thought about. So, but after I shut down, here was the weird part. After I shut down, so the first week in Italy was very intense. We had a lot of family, from all over the place, all over the country of Italy. People from out of town navigating relatives, other family members, and it was pretty interesting. Is that our that week was a lot of intensity. So there's not real time downtime to think about things. However, the next week I was sort of Emery and I were traveling. Up north in Italy. And what happened was I had the shutdown period, but still didn't come, and I couldn't figure it out. But maybe it was because the disconnection was different this time. We had accomplished something great. Our daughter got married. We had a successful wedding. People had a wonderful time. We had a wonderful time. But I wasn't thinking about growth. And what I noticed is that when I don't think about growth, I really sort of think about nothing. I really don't have anything else that's going to drive me, because I'm thinking about becoming more self-aware, growing my law practice, growing light bulb moments, of course, so that we reach more people, and then thinking about my future, because longevity and so forth is becoming a big part of it as well. Also, maybe because I wasn't problem solving, obviously, the first week, but the first week it was very simple. Emma had it in hand. She took care of business as it relates to all the events and what was going on. All I had to do is problem solve. Is, hey, we got to go to dinner here. We got to schedule that. But I wasn't actually problem solving, and my problem solving skills were not needed. So perhaps maybe because I wasn't needed and I wasn't in a situation where I was needed, maybe, just maybe, that's the idea of hey, that was from Talladega Nights, Sasha Baron Cohen, Sasha Baron Cohen. So check that one out. That's a funny scene. Anyway, I do digress. Anyway, I think I got that one right, Bill Carney. I digressed. I didn't tangent there. All right, so when I'm not needed, then maybe I feel like there's a gap there, so I shut down. That's possible too. Um, and I think when I achieve accomplishments, when I get to a level where something important happens, I always want to level off to the next step, but I didn't have anything to do because I think this is where it is. I said I think a lot today because it is. I'm trying to think and process this as I'm talking to you here today. The outside stimulus is different. Like the hospitality in Italy, it's sort of second to none. And when you're in areas where they're taking care of you and they're not pressuring you, there is no situation in which you have to resolve anything. I think that dynamic sort of changes your energy, so you sort of mold into that energy as well. So I don't know if that's scientific. I don't know if that's real. I don't know if I'm just whistling Dixie. But the idea was is that you sort of go into the energy of your surroundings. So why I think this was important was when I got to the point of coming back and thinking about coming back, that's when the flow of ideas and the stimuli came back. It's the idea that I'm going back to the environment that gives me all the energy that drives me. So me as I think about this, I because I don't always want to stay European, different states, where I have to stay for a long time, where I'm out of my environment, where all my the strength of my network is located, just sort of like the nucleus of that. I like the word nucleus. Anyway, the idea is that perhaps as I go through this evolution of how I react to outside stimulus, I see that when I get into a situation where I'm desperately needed, that's where I get fired up and problem solve and attack situations far differently than when I'm away. So I thought that was pretty interesting. Also, because technology was spotty, I wasn't constantly interacting with the outside world as I would because, people say, stay away from your phone, this and that. But unfortunately or fortunately, email, text, calls from people I know, doing this on the podcast, that's another thing I did. Podcast. So the idea of not having to a microphone and to interact, it really sort of caused the idea that maybe this was the missing piece. This is where I was missing something so important in my life. And when I got back, I felt this energy to go ahead and do this. So these are my thoughts, and I think I sort of got to the point of where I'm at. I guess my light bulb moment today is that I need a little bit of chaos. I need a little bit of I need situations where my skill sets are needed. I need to understand and speak out what is going through my mind through flash moments and the podcast, and I need to sort of take care of things. And if I don't have that, I sort of go into a state of just non joyous feeling, and that's weird because people vacation. These are on bucket lists, and we've talked about this before. People go away. It's not for me. I like it in small pieces. What I do like is what we're doing today, talking through some of the things that sort of make us drive. So I think that's important is that and the last thing here is sort of the idea of what maybe you can take away from it is that find those joy spots. Don't just do what other people say is important and bucket lists or something that's so important to you, right? Is like, oh, well, that person wants to go to concerts or that person wants to golf. I don't know. I don't necessarily want to go to concerts or golf. I like to hear concerts every once in a while, randomly, but I don't want to go to big baseball games anymore. These are all sort of changes in my life that have transformed how I have operated in my world. And what I thought was important before maybe is not as important now. Anyway, reflect on this. I don't know if this makes any sense or not to you, or whether this is one where you go, you know, he's a crybaby. He was just in Italy and he wasn't thinking about problem solving. So, that's weird, but who cares? That's how I feel. So that's what's most important. And, hopefully you can find something that's similar. It doesn't have to be the same, of course, and it's never typically the same. All right. Speaking of energy, tomorrow we're going to be speaking to Dr. Rachael Loeb, a New Yorker, and you know how I love talking to New Yorkers. It's my favorite thing in the world because of the energy, of course. She was a result of Madeline Chan, who I went on a tour at 240 Park in New York City, thanks to Richard Cracker. And Madeline is an avid listener of Light Bulb Moments, and she had sent me something on the spark line. And incidentally, Bright Community, start sending me some spark lines. Give me some ideas so I can talk about it and mention you on the podcast. Spark lines on our website, very easy to tie in. You can leave a 30-second, 60-second message, whatever it is, and talk to me. Anyway, Madeline said on the spark line, hey, get some people to talk about the sandwich generation. I go, what's the sandwich generation? The sandwich generation is experiencing both as an adult, experiencing both taking care of children and taking care of older adults. We get to talk about the club sandwich. I'm not going to spoil what that's about, but she talks about that as well. But the sandwich generation is very, very important, it says the doctor, because we have to figure out what's going on in our lives, not when it happens, not when someone has Alzheimer's, but or is aged or affirmed or whatever. You have to get involved early on in this world. I mean, early on in the process and plan for it, like you do everything else. You do your financial planning, you do your vacation planning, you do your business planning. Why not plan for what is going to be your mortality, or at least your older years? So you start planning for not only yourself, you start talking about this with your kids, and you start talking about it with your parents, and sort of design this plan as you go along. So it's very, very relevant. And now that I've talked about it, thank you, Madeline. Now that I've talked about it with Dr. Loeb, I sort of understand that I've got to be better at it. And she gives some nice tools that we can use and books that we can read to sort of get to that next level of understanding what to do next. But guess what? As always, there's more than talking just about that topic. We're talking about public health preparedness, what happened in prior, like COVID and hurricanes in New York City, and then really she talks about some of the things that in New York and in government that sort of really help us understand what to expect both now and in the future based on the past things that have happened. So we'll see everyone tomorrow for another positive day of illuminating thoughts and light bulb moments. Stay bright, everyone.